Coming up next on Hands on Windows, we're going to take a look at Windows 10, that boogeyman out there running on 2/3 of all PCs. How come we never talk about it?
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Hands on Windows. I'm Thurrott, and this week we're going to take a look at a rather unusual topic because we always focus on Windows 11, and that topic is Windows 10. And this is an issue I've had for my entire career because I've always focused on the future. You know, the tagline of the Super Site for Windows, which I started way back in 1998, was it's the future of Windows today. And that focus has continued to Thurrott.com and to my various books and so forth. And, you know, it happens here as well on Hands on Windows. I think we've pretty much exclusively stuck to Windows 11. But the thing is, about 2/3 of the user base has stayed with Windows 10. This is somewhere between 600 and 750 million people. And while I still do prefer Windows 11 overall, despite whatever issues it may have, there are some pretty good reasons for sticking with Windows 10, which you can do through October 2025, unless something changes, at which time it will exit support, and then you can pay for support. And you can do that as an individual, which is kind of interesting. So that's a way you can continue using it for up to 3 years. And it will give you some time to think about whether you want to migrate to Windows 11 or just get a new computer that has Windows 11 on it or whatever. So I thought the way I would handle this is to go over my top 10 reasons why you might want to stick with Windows 10. So to do this, I am running Windows 11, of course. So let me bring up a remote desktop connection, and I will connect to the laptop that's back there. If I can figure out how to type my password. And okay, so we bring this up into this remote desktop window. I think this will work out pretty well. That way we can see Windows 11 and Windows 10 at the same time. So both of these computers I've signed into with a Microsoft account. The Windows 10 running over there in the laptop is my personal account, my normal account. I've heavily customized Windows 10 because you can, right? So it looks a little different than it might a stock version of Windows 10 would look. The Windows 11 version that's running around it is a stock version of Windows 11. This is the account I use for the book, so I try to keep it as clean as possible, but still, I think makes for kind of an interesting comparison. So, number one, Windows 10 works on more hardware than does Windows 11, right? Windows 11 has kind of an arbitrary hardware or set of hardware requirements. There's no way I can really show this to you. This particular computer is, I believe, is an 8th gen Intel Core processor, if I'm not mistaken. And so again, there's no good demo here per se, but you can go into Device Manager and kind of look at everything, and you know, everything's working great. It's fine. The compatibility is across the board, of course, is very good. Windows 11 doesn't require you to sign in with a Microsoft account when you first set up the operating system. Now, in Windows 11, you can, of course, get around that. There are workarounds, but in Windows 10, they're not forcing you to do that, right? So at setup time, you could set it up for a local account, right? In Windows 11, you might go in later and create a different account, you know, this way, and then, you know, sign in and get rid of the Microsoft account, et cetera. There's different ways around it, but natively out of the box, like older versions of Windows, Windows 10 supports local account at setup, which is kind of nice. Windows 10 is a lot less chaotic than Windows 11. You know, one of the big stories about Windows 11, especially the past year or so, has been just the sheer number of updates that we get in that version of the operating system. With Windows 10, you can get, we have this option, you can get the latest updates. That means you'll get preview updates on week D of every month, the 4th Tuesday of every month, which is a preview version of the Patch Tuesday update that's coming the following month. But you just don't see the same number of new features all the time. This past month, for example, we had several new features in Windows 11. We had technically one new feature in Windows 10 as well, but nothing dramatic. And you just don't see that kind of churn that we get with Windows 11. Now, Copilot is coming. So some of the big stuff is coming, of course, to Windows 10 because the system's still supported, all the users are there and all that kind of stuff. But if you're looking for a more stable environment and you need Windows, you know, Windows 10 is kind of a better choice in that way. It's also more stable, and that's because they're not really worried about making this prettier or different looking, and they're not updating all the UIs and everything. If you run something like File Explorer, this is a real kind of old school looking app. There's not a lot of interface cruft going on top of it. When you run File Explorer in Windows 11, it's pretty, but this stuff all has overhead, and it's really unreliable. It's new code. It has functional regressions. You can't drag and drop into the address bar anymore like you could in previous versions, like you can in Windows 10. So there's this, this is tied to the last one I get, but it's not just less chaotic from an update standpoint. It's also less chaotic just from a day-to-day standpoint, because all the tools that are built into it really haven't been touched. They just work, right? So there's something nice about that, and certainly something that appeals to me in particular. Windows 10 is also more familiar. It's been around since 2015. I do like the Windows 11 UI. I like the rounded corners. I like the centered stuff and all that. Things seem to be they're a little bigger, that kind of thing. It's more like a mobile OS. Windows 10, interestingly, was designed to look and feel like Windows Phone. I actually got rid of all the live tile stuff because it doesn't really do much, but it has this kind of flat UI. If we go into like settings is maybe a better example. It just has this kind of aesthetic to it, but it's familiar. And if you've been around for a while, or if you're just even a casual user, I think you'll look at this and say, yeah, no, I get this. This is the Windows I kind of know and understand. And Windows 11, is a little bit different, of course. For power users, Windows 10 is kind of hard to beat because all the options are there. You right click on the desktop in Windows 11 and you've got this kind of subset of what used to be there, and it's pretty for sure. If you right click on here in Windows 10, you have more options. And to get to these, I think you can hold on Shift probably. Yeah, you can get the send menu. Or you could just right click and choose show more options. Basically the same menu. Some of this stuff is not built into Windows. I've customized both these systems to some degree. So the Git stuff is stuff I've added, obviously. But it's even more dramatic on the taskbar, right? We've got two options in Windows 11. Windows 10, we've got about 1,100 options. You can add toolbars. We have a direct interaction model here, which I think is really cool. You right click on something and you can do something to it. If you right click on that, that's a menu, that's the same. But when we right click on search or task view, those don't do anything. In fact, let me put task view back. So if I put task view here and task view, it looks a little different, but it's task view, same as this button down here. When we right click it, something happens and you get to go right to the option where you can disable it, right? They've made that an extra step in Windows 11, because to disable that here, I actually have to go into taskbar settings, which loads the the settings app. And then I have to find it, right? It happens to be right there, but it's just an additional step. It's extra stuff. I think for people who have been around a while and understand how Windows works, there's always this kind of sense of moving my cheese with every version. But with Windows 11, it's like someone's eaten my cheese. Like they've taken things away. It can be problematic for people who use some of the more esoteric features of the system. There's also this notion of Windows 10 as being kind of the best of both worlds, right? You've got the same foundational code that's built into Windows 11. It's the same system under the covers. You've got a different UI, but because the UI is not updated, because the apps aren't updated as much, although key apps are, like the Microsoft Store, Edge, Clipchamp, those apps are common between the two. So if I run the Store app, you'll see it's the same Store app that we get here in Windows 11. But that's kind of the point. If it's important, it is coming to Windows 10. If it's not important, not so much. And that's kind of nice, because a lot of the changes they're making to Windows 11 are kind of superfluous little things, little goofy things they put in the start menu, little ads, little whatevers. And it's just it's incredibly irritating. So it's kind of nice. Not that Windows 10 is free of junk. Here's a suggested thing, people are freaking out because they're putting ads in the Windows 11 start menu as I record this show. This has been in Windows 10 since day one, right? I actually just re-enabled that. But the nice thing again is you can direct interact and say, just don't turn this off, or just turn off all suggestions. And you can go in here and just turn them off, and now they're gone, right? Nice. Windows 10 is far more customizable. In fact, you can kind of see it here. It's maybe not obvious, but even just looking at something like Task Manager, taskbar settings is like a really good example. A lot of the settings are going to be the same, obviously, but there's a lot of stuff in Windows 10 that just isn't available in Windows 11, right? So locking the taskbar, gone, because we don't have additional toolbars we can use in Windows 11. So that's a feature. Automatically hiding the taskbar in whatever modes available in both systems, although we don't have a tablet mode in Windows 11. They took that away. I enabled small taskbar buttons, a small taskbar really, in Windows 10 here, not available in Windows 11, right? I can move the taskbar to different locations on the screen. Can't do that in Windows 11. It's stuck on the bottom, right? Kind of goes on and on. There's a lot of that kind of stuff. Not that there aren't different options available, obviously, in Windows 11 for the taskbar, but it's a subset of what you can do in Windows 10. And over time, they're starting to add things. This ability to combine taskbar buttons and hide labels has been in Windows forever. It's been, well, not forever, but Windows 7 probably. It was in Windows. It is Windows 10. It just came back. So they've fixed that regression, and over time they'll probably fix a few more, and that's how they'll get some of those Windows 7 or Windows 10 people to move up, I guess. But right now, it's still a subset. And this is going to seem like a small one, but if you look at the calendar in Windows 11, you'll see two things. One is that it's tied to this notifications pane. They're together. And two, this is completely non-interactive. You can kind of scroll out in time. You can move around the calendar. You can go into the calendar, go to the day, but you can't do anything with the calendar. It's just a calendar. In Windows 10, two differences. So the notification manager, which was called Action Center in this version of the operating system, it's just the really notification pane in Windows 11, is completely separate. So it's its own thing. And the calendar is interactive. I can add events or reminders to my calendar. I don't use my Outlook.com calendar, so you don't see any events, but if I did, you would see them here. And I could say something like, record a podcast, and you get this kind of neat UI that pops up in line. And I can add, pick the calendar. Sorry, I pick the calendar here. It's been so long since I've used it. I have different calendars associated with this account. I could pick the calendar. The time, obviously, location is a physical location. But if I wanted to go to more details, it will load in this case, the calendar app, although more recently you might use the Outlook app. But you can, create your event, provide all the details, save it, whatever. I won't do that, but it will appear in the calendar, right? That's nice. So, I miss this in some ways. Like I said, I still very much prefer Windows 11, but when you use Windows 10 again, you feel that pull a little bit. The nice thing for people who are on Windows 11 is that you can almost certainly run Windows 10 on your PC if you want to. These things are compatible. All of the drivers and apps that run on Windows 11 work on Windows 10. And so the way you might do that is, well, you just Google it really. You'd say something like, download, like as we would say for download Windows 11, just download Windows 10. And you go to the Microsoft website. It's a little different from the Windows 11 version of this page because there's fewer options, but the version of the Windows 10 installation, the media creation tool, which you get by clicking this, also works a little bit differently. So this will allow you to download a Windows 10 ISO, which is that disk image file that you can use to install Windows. I did that earlier. And so if I go to my, downloads folder here, you could use that tool just to create a stock Windows 10 installer, but you can also use a third-party tool like Rufus to do what we do with Windows 11, which is, I didn't plug in the little USB drive here, which is to create a custom version of it, right? That has, that maybe does some things that the normal version of the Windows 10 installer would not do. So in this case, if I got to select I have to find the file, and then I get the little wizard like we have normally. So Rufus gives you these extra options. Some of these are the same with Windows 11. Some of them are a little bit different, but you could have it just create a local account for you and kind of blow through setup. You could have it set your regional options to be the same as they are on this computer. Skip data collection, which I've never tried, but I assume what that means is say no to all of those privacy questions that are part of setup. I hope that's what that means, but I actually think it's a good idea to be confronted with that during setup, so you can kind of because you'll want some on, some off. I don't think you really want them all off. And then optionally disable BitLocker device encryption, which is automatic when you sign in with the Microsoft account. I don't recommend that either, but at least it's an option if you want it. So I recommend using Rufus instead of the Microsoft tool because you get these additional options. And then, give it a spin. And if it doesn't work out, you could use this exact same process, but download the Windows 11 ISO and you can just go back, right? You don't have to say if Windows 10 doesn't work out for you, you can give it a shot and go back if it fails for you. So I hope you found this interesting and useful. We release new episodes of Hands on Windows every Thursday. You can find out more at twit.tv/HOW. Thank you so much for watching. And thank you especially to our Club Twit members. We really appreciate it. See you next week.